All right, man. Let's look at some of these scheduling changes here for 2024. I know you put out a blog a couple months ago as well, Elliot, so we can highlight some of the notable changes, but it's definitely going to look a little bit different than it has these last couple years as we got introduced to the next gen car.
Yeah, definitely. So starting here on the list, Atlanta is now the follow-up race to the Daytona 500. That's February the 25th. That could get a little wonky at the beginning of the year. Starting off with two
Yeah.
super speedway style tracks, we could be sitting here going into the third race of the season at Vegas with somebody like Corey LaJoie as our points leader just because of good runs, So those two races will be early opportunities for chaos, early opportunities to win a lot of money, but also early opportunities to kind of fall back and have to rebuild in these next first couple of races.
I think what this tells me here with this race moving up so far right after the 500, I'm going to have a lot of my unit allocation on the Clash. While the Clash is pretty unpredictable as well, it's a hell of a lot more predictable than these super speedway races. So
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to move some of my unit allocation up there because I'm not going to plan to spend a lot at the 500 or here at Atlanta because we know what that gets you into. Sometimes you can have great races like we did in the fall Daytona races, but then we have like the spring Talladega where everything just goes to hell. So I'll be light early, I think, Ellie, is what this tells me.
Right. So we got chaos early in the season. Then some more normal tracks. Races 3 and 4 of the year are Las Vegas and Phoenix, obviously tracks we're familiar with in the late playoffs. Then race number 5, it's no longer the Bristol dirt race. They said that was fun. Maybe we'll do it again. But the racing at Bristol has been too good.
Yeah.
They're taking off the dirt. They're bumping up their spring race to St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. And I think that's a great decision, especially with some potential new short track programs. Bristol's already had good racing. If it's going to have even better racing with this, I mean, I like the idea of dirt, but I like the idea of concrete Bristol in this car a hell of a lot better.
Yeah, we've said it a million times on this show. If you're going to do dirt, go run Eldora or something else. Like, don't ruin a great Bristol track. I am curious what the fan interaction will be like that weekend. Is that too cold to camp? I guess we'll kind of find out. But, it'll be a lot warmer than it will be here in Pennsylvania down in Bristol. So either way, I'm excited to have two Bristol concrete races. And, like, at least we can then confidently pull from that first Bristol race going into the later season as well.
True, because Bristol being usually a playoff cutoff race. I don't know if we have that as a cutoff again this year. Probably, I mean, with all the drama. But yeah, going into that in September and being like, oh, the first race was on the dirt. We can't pull really anything from that.
Yeah,
it is a really good point. It'll make Bristol in the playoffs when we get there in September or whenever it is a hell of a lot easier. And just hopefully Bristol in the cold will race better than Martinsville in the cold because that hasn't gone so well the last few years when it's happened.
Cross your fingers. Cross your fingers.
Fingers crossed for sure. Some more changes. Texas is bumped up back to the regular season. April the 14th is that race. And this one makes so much sense because the racing at Texas has been very lackluster.
Yeah.
It makes more sense to give some more interesting tracks playoff dates, which we'll get to here in a minute.
Yeah, Texas did have a really good showing here in 2023. I think it has less to do with the tracks and more just kind of what was on the line in that race and how it all shook out. But yeah, I think this makes sense. Texas is a warm weather environment too. You can run this in the spring while everywhere else around the U.S. is heating up. So I'm all right with it. We're not the biggest Texas fans, but we did do pretty well there last year. So hopefully we hit a little bit of luck there early in April as well this year.
Yeah, even if the racing is a bit of a snooze fest, if we win money on it, I mean, that makes it great.
Yeah, I'll take that for sure.
So the next big change we have, so last fall there were talks of NASCAR trying to move international for their special race. They're taking away Bristol dirt. They were thinking of going to Montreal, thinking of going somewhere else. Didn't quite work out for 24. So Iowa Speedway, which strangely enough was off of the top 3 series schedule last year, now is getting a cup race June the 16th, as well as the lower series races. I mean, it's been a while since, most people who focus on cup may not watch the Iowa races. IndyCar does go there and has gone there and has had a good show. Xfinity and trucks have gone there, but seeing the Cup Series cars here is going to be interesting.
Yeah, we don't really have a track like Iowa on the circuit, so I think that will be the one thing. It's a 7th, 8th mile, so what we can do going into it, comping it, I think it will be a little bit tough to really nail down and handicap that race, Elliot, but I think the books are going to have just as much trouble as we do. We saw it at Chicago when we were able to catch them sleeping a little bit and some other times last year going to these one-off tracks. So yeah, I'm hoping Iowa's fun. I don't know fuck about shit when it comes to Newton, Iowa. So I don't know what's there for like a fan experience or anything like that. But
lots of corn, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'll buckle up, man. I'll go camp in the corn for a weekend. So shout out for NASCAR for at least trying something new. We need to get to Montreal. That absolutely needs to be something that happens here in 2025. I mean, holy fuck. I mean, I might be getting my passport. I don't know if they'll let me in to Canada. I do have, we do have, everything's been expunged, so we're good. But
Yeah, I'm sure you'll be fine. Canada's a nice, forgiving country, and those were always such great Xfinity races. Those I remember as a kid. Some
yeah,
of that chaos there. Boris said getting the win up there. Robbie Gordon getting
Boris.
pissed off at Harvick or whoever that was. Lots of good racing up there. But for now, it's Iowa. Similar short track date. New Hampshire moved up to June the 23rd. Don't know that there's a whole lot to say about that because it was in the summer before. We saw the crazy. It started the rain shower and Kyle Busch wrecked a couple years ago. But normally, New Hampshire's one of the more simple tracks. I feel like the handicap.
I love New Hampshire. One of my favorite races to bet on. So I'm happy that's a little bit forward as well. That's cool.
Yeah, helps us make up some of those potential losses with some chaos there. One I didn't mention is COTA is race number 6. We talked about the first 5. Yes. Then we'll get a good idea of road courses also. Even though COTA is a bit more chaotic than some of these other ones, still be good to watch.
We were holding that Tyler Reddick ticket last year at COTA, like so tight to our chest. It was our first outright hit of the year. So yeah, that was a fun one. Hopefully we don't have to do that again this season.
No, hopefully not. A couple more we'll talk about. We're back to the oval at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The Brickyard is back July 21st. And it's not that the road course had bad racing, but this just feels right, being one of the crown jewels of motorsports in America, for the Cup Series to be racing back on the oval.
I think if you want to do the road course at Indy, go ahead and do the road course there. But you also need to run the Brickyard for what it's intended to do. I mean, when this race first came to the NASCAR Cup Series years and years ago, like they were so excited because this is something that it's always been on the Indy slate. It's always been the crown jewel there. And, I think it kind of just lost some of that luster over the years, but I don't really know why, because it was always a fun race. Like I remember Paul Menard winning this race back in the day. I was kind of a pseudo Paul Menard fan a little bit there. So that was kind of cool to see. But yeah, I've always liked the Brickyard, so I'm glad to have it back. I will miss Indy Road Course. That was a great race last season as well. But good to have the original Brickyard back as well.
Yeah, and Juan Pablo Montoya still swears on his wife and his kids he was not speeding. So that was a few years earlier than that. Also, some playoff changes. So the way the broadcast deal works out, this year is the final year of Fox taking the first half, NBC taking the second half. NASCAR is going to take a 2-week break during the Olympics, which will be a good kind of halftime break for the series. Yeah. But also, NBC is not going to have any channels to air it on because they put the Olympics on every damn channel they have. As a result, to keep Darlington and the Southern 500 on Labor Day weekend, that is now the regular season finale. They're going to have Daytona the week before that. Darlington, traditionally the first playoff race, is now the regular season finale on September the 1st. Again, maybe this takes some luster out of the playoffs. I do like keeping it traditional Labor Day weekend, and it'll make things a little less chaotic and have a relatively normal track. Kind of reminds me of when we did Richmond every year before the chase would start. Maybe some guys will have some of the more traditional contenders that maybe won't have a win or will be on the outside looking in will feel good about this.
This is a real fucking catch-22 for me, man, because like that 2-week break is honestly gonna be a real nice for us. We're going to the Fantasy Football Expo one of those weekends, so we'll be away.
It works out really well.
Yeah, it works out great for us as a business, but ultimately as a consumer, like I need that Daytona race being the cutoff race. That is such a treat, and it makes me want to bet on that race a lot more because I feel like there's a little more to go off of because of intentions and maybe strategy built into that race. So. Darlington's still a fun race too. I really do like Darlington to both gamble and play DFS on. So I think that will be kind of a fun treat to get there. But a little bit sad with some of those changes there to the early playoffs. But, hey, we're buckled in it either way. So either move it or lose it here.
The nice thing is I think this is just going to be a 1-year thing because of the Olympics.
Yeah.
They won't take the 2-week break in the future. I don't know if they'll add a second bye weekend somewhere else or whatnot. They have only been just doing one in the summer, I feel like. But yeah, so hopefully that goes back to the same. And then another postseason change, Watkins Glen is moving into the playoffs. That race will be September the 15th. Watkins Glen has always had good racing. One of the 2 traditional road courses. I think it'll be good to have this in the postseason.
It's going right up against the week number 1 of the NFL. That's the only thing that you kind of hate about this is there's probably not going to be a ton of viewers on Watkins Glen. Maybe that's part of the strategy, but I would love to get up to the Glen. I'm not going to be able to this year with it being week 1 of the season, but the Glen, you will get some good racing every single time. So I'm excited to see